Let's start with right. I'm going to start with my lovely intro. Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Taylor, and you are listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, your weekly digest of hobby goodness. Joining me this week is an artist who was active on sketch cards when I came fully to the hobby. Her work on the early Rittenhouse Archives set I was exposed to became the benchmark for quality work, and her style is unmistakable. I know, I should stop it, shouldn't I? Someone I've been internet buddies with for 15 years. This will be the first time we've actually spoken. So I'm more than beaming with joy when I say welcome to Rhiannon Owens.
Good morning. Thank you for
Good,
having me.
good morning. Good morning. We it's like internet, it's like podcast bingo. This is because people will be taking a swig when I say the first thing, which is thank you for getting up super early. Because everyone always ends up getting up super early to join me on these things.
That's very cool. I am notoriously known for not being a morning person.
Mm.
Um so I did go to bed early last night. I was like, I'm gonna get up early and I'm gonna get
Oh,
ready. And then when my alarm went off, I looked at it and I don't know why, but I just immediately thought, is this Eastern time that he sent me? Because I'm in Central. So I looked at your
I
message and I was like, ah,
cue
but
Benny Hill music as you're getting ready. Yeah,
yes. I
yeah.
used to watch that as a kid. I love Benny Hill.
Benny Hill was kind of like a staple when I was growing up in the UK. That and the
Yeah.
two Ronnies, Monty Python or Python, as Americans say. I could have sworn you were in Florida. I don't know why I thought you were
I
East
used
Coast.
to live in Florida. I was in
Ah,
Florida when my career started in 2008. So I lived there for 25 years. I moved to the central time zone in 2016. So you were not
ah,
wrong.
got
I
you.
was in Florida. And it's hilarious. You mentioned Benny Hill. Like I love British sketch comedy. And earlier before you started recording, you said so, and I was like, oh God, it's Nan from the Catherine Tate show. It sounded just like,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
was like, yeah. So
yeah. I never really got into the Catherine Tate show, although I obviously saw it because it was
mhm.
everywhere and it was big. The I guess the most recent one that I really got into, and I say recent, this is 20 plus years ago now, was the Fast show.
I've never seen that one.
Oh,
I was
it's
also a really big
astonishing.
fan of Little Britain.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't really do
David
that one.
Williams and
Yeah,
Matt Lucas. Yeah.
yeah,
But they really pushed the vulgarity and the adult humor.
yeah.
So that certainly not for children.
Yeah, no, certainly not. No, I mean, yeah, them and Catherine Tate were kind of around the same sort of time, and
Yeah.
I kind of discovered women by then, I guess is probably the best way to phrase it. So I wasn't watching as much sketch comedy, but I was also out a lot because I worked in the West End. I worked in West End theatre, so most of my evenings I wasn't in, and this was before the days of being able to just turn on the telly and
Yeah.
like watch on demand streaming and all that malarkey.
No.
The closest the internet came to the television was when you bought one off the internet. So, but anyway, I digress. I could talk about sketch comedy and do Monty Python quotes all morning if you chose to. Um,
We will have to do a follow up where we do that. But
we will have to do a follow up. I'm very tempted to ask you favorite Monty Python sketch, so I'm going to
um,
ask you. It's a
I
tough one,
don't
isn't
know
it?
that I have a favorite sketch.
Mm.
Um, but my favorite, I think my favorite moment um was the Bring Out Your Dead. And I'm not dead yet. Um, what is that from? It's a movie.
I think
I'm
it's
drawing a
from
blank.
it
Holy
might
Grail?
be it no, it might be that or it might it's one of them or Meaning of Life it might be.
I think it's the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
Meaning of Life. Uh,
Mr. Creosote.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's Bring Out Your Dead and the rabbit with
Yes,
the
that's
long
it.
nasty pointy
Mm.
teeth. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I don't know why, but the whole Bring Out Your Dead and then there's the one person on the cart. I'm not dead yet, and it just became a running joke between some friends of mine and I all through high school. And then quite oddly in very poor taste when COVID hit. Um, that whole line of "Bring Out Your Dead," like we were trying desperately to make light of a very dire
Mm,
situation, and so
mm.
it was the anybody in your neighborhood, bring out your dead.
Yeah,
It was horrible. It
yeah,
was really
it's horrible. That's the thing. It is horrible, but it's kind of like at the end of the day, it's so horrible. It's like gallows humor, isn't it?
yeah,
You've got to find some way of dealing with it and laughing
yes.
with it. No, mine is we will talk about cards in a minute, people. Sorry. Mine is Meaning of Life, and it's not Mr. Creosote. Good that that is. Um, how are you feeling, sir? Better. Better, sir? Better get a bucket. I think I'm going to throw up. But no, it's the bit at the end where they're having a dinner party, and then they all die, and death turns up, and and they go, "How can we have all died at the same time? You know, was it something we ate?" And Death, with his bony hand, just goes like this and goes, "The salmon mousse." It just always just cracks me up. I often find myself just randomly saying the salmon mousse and doing that hand motion, and people
Yes.
just kind of cross the road to get away from me. Anyway, um, so Ree,
Yes.
um, you mentioned it. You mentioned that you started in sketch cards in 2008. So that's
Mhm.
kind of about the time I started in the hobby properly,
Yep.
um, with Marvel Masterpieces 2007, which I've talked about before. So you were on Rittenhouse sets, I believe, was your
Yes.
first gig. So tell us about how you kind of got that gig and how that happened.
Um, so I am friends still with Jason Sobel, who is also a sketch card artist. Jason was already working for Rittenhouse at the time. He started in 2006 on the Complete Avengers, I think, 1963 to present. And we had mutual friends. We had kind of met in passing, but had never really spoken. And Jason and I were at a comic art convention called Heroes Con in North Carolina
Mm.
in 2008. And he was working on the Fantastic Four archive set. I was across the room just doodling in a sketchbook, and he saw my work and he was like, "I really like what you do. Like you could totally do what I do." And I've said this several times over the last 14, 15 years. Like, I don't know what you do. What do you do? And he knew that I love the X-Men, so he said that I know that the next set is X-Men related.
Gotcha.
So he said, "Do some samples and I'll send it to the art director, and if they like you, they'll send you an email." And that was it. So Robert Colbus at Rittenhouse got a hold of me maybe a month and a half later. Um, no, actually, it was much longer than that because we went to the convention in June of 2008. Robert sent me an email in December of 2008.
Gotcha.
And that was it. That was the first set, and that really just everything skyrocketed after that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was X-Men Archives, yeah?
Yep.
So straight away, your absolute probably dream gig if you're into the X-Men, I'm guessing.
Yes, actually. And I have. So I'm ridiculously sentimental, and I have um, some cards from that particular project,
Hmm.
um, two of which are really, really close to my heart. So
YouTube
I
viewers are about to
used
get a treat, by the way, I have a feeling.
I used to collect cards more than I do now. I don't
Okay.
anymore because don't um I don't have the expendable income that I used to because
Who
the
does?
hobby has really changed in the last 14 years. So I have all of the promo cards because it has this on the back of it,
Yes, that's it, which was on the box as well, I believe.
but I got that card back.
Oh, astonishing.
So this card I credit probably 90% of my success to this image. And then I also have the very first card I ever did for Rittenhouse. I don't know if the glare is too much on this, but
No, that's good. Good.
yeah. And I look at this card now and I cringe because the anatomy and proportion is horrible.
Yeah.
um, but this particular card, someone when we were all still active on the scoundrel boards, maybe that was 2010, I think, when they got a hold of me about that card and they were like, hey, so I think you might want this. Because I made a post about if anybody finds these cards, please let me know and we can
I
trade or
think
I'll
I
buy them.
remember seeing that because I joined
50
Scoundrel in
was it
2008.
501 Blues? I think his name was, maybe.
Yeah, I have a feeling he might have passed away.
I think he has.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Mm.
there's been a couple of people. Uh, I know, was it last year, Christopher Wiseman? We lost,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he was a big Angela collector. He has
That's
some
right.
cards of mine.
Lovely fella.
And then there were a handful of people the year before, and then of course during COVID we lost a lot of
Mm.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
not to bring the mood down, but
No. No. No.
yeah. So XMen Archives really set a precedent for me, and I still get hate about it. I still get people who are like, I don't know why you got so much attention so early on. That's not fair. Because I asked. I
Well.
asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent Robert a message and I was like, what do I have to do to be like on the box and in the advertisements? And he's like, well, we just pick it randomly at the in house if we like it. And then when the solicitations came out for XMen Archives, I had two cards. There was a rogue card also, which I've never seen. But
Mm.
yeah, I was getting messages like, what did you have to do? And I'm like, I just asked.
If you don't
That was
ask, you
all.
don't get.
I still have the email saved because I'm sentimental about stuff like that. So yeah, it was a
Cool.
really, here I am. Hi.
So you were already like creating work and doing art before you started on sketch cards. So what was your kind of journey to doing that? Were you doing it from like since you were knee high to a grasshopper or in school, or how did you get going?
If you were to ask my mother, she would tell you that I finger painted in my baby chair when I was little. I was always just moving things around. My father was a hobbyist. He has artistic talent. Somewhere in storage, I have old sketchbooks of his where he drew Red Sonja and Conan the Barbarian from
Oh
old
wow.
comics from the 60s and 70s. Um, and I I grew up an only child. Coincidentally, I am the middle child of five siblings, two from my mother's first marriage, two from my father's second marriage, because my parents are now divorced. But
Right.
I grew up by myself. So I was not interested in, getting in trouble and being a little vagrant or whatever. So I just stayed inside and drew all the time. My mother, I think I was in the fourth grade. Yes, fourth grade. 1987, for those of you who remember the 80s. Uh, it was Uncanny X-Men 224. She just brought it home and she's like, I heard you did really well on a test. Here's a comic book, which was very random. I had no previous interest in comics. There were no movies or media really at that time. Um, and I opened it up and there was a full page of Storm with a mohawk. And I was like, I want to be her when I grow up. And she was like, you are never cutting your hair like that. And you can't dye it white. Don't ask. And I asked forever. So I started copying pictures out of comic books to teach myself how to draw people. And so having just recently moved and finding all of this stuff, I have all of these things like right here. So I just forever just did it as a hobby. And then when my parents separated, my mother and I moved to Florida in 1992. And I went to an visual and performing arts magnet program high school. So basically, half of the day we did our academics, and then the other half of the day we did our art classes. Um, where is it? I have it here somewhere. I'll find it. And as a young adult, when I first moved out on my own, I did draw a lot just to kind of supplement my income. I did
Mm.
paintings of like fairies and mythical stuff. Uh, I don't. This isn't dated, but this is from the 80s. This is so I did an interview last year with Bill Vazzosi,
Oh yeah,
and
Billy.
I talk about this horrible Dazzler that I used to copy off of an old Mark Silvestri cover from Fall of the
Mm.
Mutants. I found it. Look at how bad
Oh,
that is. It's
oh, there's
so
a look.
horrible.
There's a look.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's so bad. This was probably from like 88 or 89.
Wow.
Um, so I've been drawing comics or comic content on my own just as a hobby for decades. But then when I met Jason in the earlier to 2000, was it 2007? No, we had to have met before then. I actually remember him coming into the store before he turned in the Avengers sketches, and he was showing our mutual friend, whose name is Donnie, and Donnie was like, you could go to comic conventions. You draw really well. So he kind of encouraged me to put myself out there. So I was going to comic conventions for 2 years before I got hired,
Wow.
and it really all just kind of fell into place. I was very lucky to have met who I met and been where I was at the time I was, because
Yeah.
literally like dominoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one I discovered you on, because I came back into cards and then I discovered sketches. Um, and the set I discovered you on, he says, reaching for his sketch card collection. Alexa, shush. Hang on a minute. There we go. Let's just unplug Alexa. Podcast 101. Always unplug Alexa because she usually makes an unscheduled guest appearance at some point during the episode. Oh, she just won't shut up. So these two. So I fought hard for this one.
Oh wow, SpiderMan Archives.
SpiderMan Archives. So that's the
Yeah.
set. I mean, I got some masterpieces ones. I missed Women of Marvel, but Spidey Archives, I went big. I went
Yeah.
big on Spidey Archives, and
Yeah.
I had over 100 sketches of Black Cat from that set at one point.
Is
Um,
that all?
is that all? Yeah, I know. I
Is
mean,
that
I
all?
could have, at one point, I did consider getting, because I'm pretty sure every artist on the set did a Black Cat. So I
Okay.
did consider doing that whole thing where you get like one sketch
Like a
from every
master
artist.
sketch set, is that what they called it?
Yeah, I think so. But I very quickly decided not to do that because I ended up hoarding certain artists. So yourself, who we got here? Kirsten
Kirsten Allen.
Allen. Yeah, I had loads of hers. Stephen Miller, Anthony Wheeler. I mean, yeah, all these people who, some of whom I'm not sure what they're up to these days. And yeah, and I think I had four of yours in this set. Two of them I've recently parted with because I had a massive trim down. But
Yeah.
these are the two that I kept. So that one, which will
Yeah.
never leave me. I absolutely love that. I just love the perspective on it, looking up the building, the movement of it. I just think it's
Yeah.
fantastic. And then I can see a little handwriting on the back. Little Black Cat. Hello,
Uh-huh.
hello, Black Cat. And then this one, which is again very dynamic, very Black Cat
Um,
coming out. Yeah.
you know what's funny is so I haven't seen some of these since I turned them in. I was super ambitious on that Spider-Man Archives project.
Mm.
And when I say ambitious, at the time, and I know some artists will probably scoff at this, but Rittenhouse required us at the time to do no less than 100 or 150 sketches.
I was going to ask how many you did. Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I'll do 300, which I worked from home. I had left my part-time jobs because I was just going to be an artist, and I very naively walked away from everything and just dove into artwork.
Wowzers.
Not realizing that the turnaround time for getting paid for projects was not immediate. Although Rittenhouse was not bad about um, paying us more quickly than some companies do these days. But yeah, I they would seal their blank cards in packs of 50, and then they would send these large boxes, like you could big enough to fit comic books in them. And I got two boxes because I did so many cards. And then when I counted through all of them, because I would always count them and then be like, hey, so the package arrived, this is how many cards. And I was honest to a fault. There's 3 more extra. So if I have time, I'll do those. Or if there were less, like there's only for SpiderMan Archives, there were only 297. I have a really weird memory for numbers. And it was the first project because it was only the third I had done for Rittenhouse. I think I had four four cards rejected. One was actually of Black Cat, and it was
Oh,
I remember it specifically, and it's been so long now. I'm sure I can talk about this without there being an issue. And whatever. So it was a horizontal card, and they had those borders,
yeah,
like the guidelines.
that's right.
So, and on the last one you showed me, there's only color in the central rectangle,
That's
the
right. Yeah.
purple. Yeah. So, I had turned it horizontal, and she was like laying on a pile, I think, of like loot, like bags of money and coins.
Hmm.
But for some reason, to further show that she was kind of half in the rectangle, half out of it, kind of like she was crawling out of a hole. I had one arm and one leg and one breast, just kind of like drawn outside of that rectangle. And so in hindsight, looking at it, it appears like her boob is falling out of the frame, and
Okay.
so there's just one breast just bloop. And so that got rejected. And then there was another one of Calypso because she had such open cleavage. And
Yeah, yeah.
this was right around the time that I think Disney acquired the Marvel license, so they were really cracking
Um,
down
okay.
on you know, anything that was too suggestive, which Rittenhouse was really good about. If we asked, hey, what did we do wrong so we don't do it again? Robert would actually email us back and go, well, my opinion is it could have been this. Um, Whereas nowadays, if something's rejected, we're just like, why? And Upper Deck's like, we don't know. We get no feedback. So
Mm.
yeah. So
Mm.
I have a lot of memories around
Okay.
Spider-Man.
Good. I think we're about 25 minutes in, and the word boob has come into play. So this is good. We're doing well. We're doing well. Anyone who had boob on their bingo card for this week, take a swig right now. I'm just going to pop these back in here.
That's so funny.
I'm going to put you on top of Andre Toma.
Oh, I've never met him, but I really like his work a lot.
So do I. Yes, I only had a couple of his, and I had to keep. I'm just going to play Black Cat Show Off Week. I had to keep that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just astonishing. There's something about the
So
energy and the
his
composition of it. I love it.
his work reminds me a little bit of Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yes, yes, very much.
There's a very graphic style to it, and
Mm,
sometimes
mm,
the raw pencil. There's like almost like a well, not almost. There's a fine art element to it, and
yes,
sometimes the way he applies the medium, it reminds me of the old Bill
mm,
Sienkiewicz New Mutants.
that's right. Yeah, and because he did a cracking. In fact, I found it when I was looking. I was looking for something. I'm about to pull out and show you in a sec. And I found the Dazzler graphic novel, which has got his cover on, and I was just like, oh, dear,
Sound of Light and Fury, I think it's called.
so good. Yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Um, so Spider-Man Archives, and you were pretty much on most of the Rittenhouse sets I remember coming out before I kind of had a bit of a dip, I guess it's fair to say. I kind of
Mhm.
didn't I had a couple of years where I wasn't really buying cards, which was around 2013, 2014, the kind of last years that Rittenhouse had the license. Were you on kind of right the way through?
I missed the first 2 years. So like I didn't do the first Avengers set. I was not on Fantastic Four. I can't remember what was in between those two, but from
Women
X-Men
of Marvel.
Archives, yes, the first Women of Marvel. From X-Men Archives on, I was on every set.
Wow.
And I was on some boxes and I was in some solicitation ads. Robert and Steven were very just generous with me, I guess is a good word, because they kind of shoved me in people's faces often.
Hmm.
Um, and that opened up other doors for me, because they also at the time had the DC license. They had Marvel and DC together,
Mm.
and so I got to do my first DC work. I still have
Cool.
a payment stub because it has the DC logo on it. And as a
Oh wow.
kid who grew up teaching themselves, how to draw from comic books, like that was a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then in 2009, after SpiderMan Archives, Jason again helped me get my foot in the door with Tops, and I started doing Star Wars.
I was going to ask about Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
I have to attribute a lot of my getting into things to Jason
okay,
because he was very helpful with that.
does he still get a commission?
No, yeah, I'm sure he wishes that he could, but I make sure to give him credit every chance I get. I
No,
will
that's
never.
good. No, Jason's cool. In fact, Jason, I've not had Jason on the show. He has done an intro for us. Is he still doing sketch cards? Should probably know this.
I don't think he does them like he used to. He's now a college art professor.
Oh, wow, okay.
And coincidentally, last month, February or March, he did a Kickstarter project, kind of as part of a college. I don't know if it was a thesis, but as like a to prove that people can actually like make a living and sell artwork and be
Yeah.
successful at it. And he had his own creation, and he asked me to do a variant cover as one of the reward tiers.
Wow.
So he also now can be credited as me doing my first ever comic book cover, even though
Wow.
it's an independent publishing. But I know I'm pretty sure that he had some sketch card reward tiers maybe.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how often he does cards. We don't talk as frequently as we used to because I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
see him. I don't live in Florida anymore.
yeah. Mm.
But we've run into each other. I think the last time we ran into each other was at a Star Wars celebration show in Orlando back when I still lived
Gotcha.
in Florida.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's been a couple of years, but we have kept in touch and commented and had conversations back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. I could have sworn I had one of his cards in here, but for the life of me, I can't find it. So I'm going to stop looking because, quite frankly, I'm just distracting myself by looking at Black Cats. So Star Wars. So obviously, the main difference, I guess, with Star Wars. I don't know if they had it then, but I know now they have this thing where obviously you have to be pretty spot on with the likenesses. How's that been for you? I imagine you've been doing it for quite a while now, so it's probably
Um, in the beginning, it was a challenge because I was just used to doing comic book art. So what was really great, but also a little nerve wracking about working on Star Wars was they did encourage, likenesses, and more sort of realism. They
mm,
definitely wanted the characters from the universe. When I started in 2009, the first project I did was Clone Wars Season 2 Wide Vision.
okay.
Um, and it was all animated. So there was a little more wiggle room because even though we were encouraged to draw those designs, it wasn't photorealistic.
Gotcha.
The next set I did was Galaxy 5, which is like any and everything Star Wars related, expanded universe,
Yeah.
etc. And they also allowed for black and white sketches.
Oh,
So again, you had to do a minimum of 100 or 150. And at the time, I was living alone for the first time ever and paranoid that I wasn't going to be able to pay my bills. So I just took on as much work as possible. Um, the downside to that was I was then at the last minute, like rushing to get things done, which I don't do that anymore. But they weren't as strict about likenesses then. As it went on, and especially after Disney acquired the license to the property, they were very much like, if you're going to do a likeness or if you're going to draw a character, please try to draw them as close, as possible. I have a friend who's a Star Wars collector and he still buys boxes and he will take pictures of his sketches and he will send them to me. And he's like, that does not look like Leia. Or, you know, someone's features are crooked or there's an eye too
yeah.
big, something. And he's like, how did that get past inspection? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Um, but they were also always really good about this was the first, like the Star Wars projects were the first time I was seeing like the chibi, the anime and the animated kind of style, which then started bleeding over into the comic sets. And there was actually quite an uproar about it there for a little while, where people were like, "Oh, I hate these little anime things," and now we're doing Marvel anime sets for Upper Deck, so it's kind of like, gotcha. Star Wars was great because we had a lot of freedom to do black and white or full color. I mean, the rate of pay was different for each, and I think creatively there was a lot of freedom for people to really, draw in their own style. Um, Early on, they weren't as strict about likenesses, but I noticed later on, they kind of did crack down on it a little bit. But no property that I have ever worked on outside of Star Trek and Buffy the Vampire Slayer were as strict about likenesses as they were, because the
Wow.
actors retained the rights of refusal.
Yeah.
So, Star Wars, that was all done in house. That was approved by whoever. They didn't have to send it to Carrie Fisher or Mark Hamill or whoever. Buffy and I've done one Buffy project and two Star Trek projects for Rittenhouse. I think I did maybe a total of 15 to 20 cards each, and I think I did less than 10 were approved because they were just like, yeah, no, we don't. And there was one specific card that I remember going, it looks just like the picture. I called Robert. I'm like, really? And he goes, we have no control. And I'm like, okay, I'm not mad at you, but that's crap. He's like,
Goodness.
sorry. Yeah. But
Not that I'm asking you to throw anyone under the bus here, but I'm asking you to throw someone under the bus. Do you remember what actor it was?
Tasha Yar was the character. I can't
Oh,
remember her
yeah.
name.
Interesting. Denise
Yeah.
Crosby. Okay.
Denise Crosby, yes.
She should
Yeah,
be
now
so
there was one of Commander Riker when he didn't have facial hair,
Oh, yeah,
and that one didn't get approved. I did three of oh, I can't remember her name now.
Deanna Troy?
Yes. One of them didn't get through. Two of them did, one didn't. But like there was one of Whoopi Goldberg that was fine. There was one of Brent Spiner that was fine. Um, I did one of Spock. It's the one and only time I've ever drawn Spock on a card. That was meant to be my return, my artist proof. But because so few of my cards got past approval, they just lumped it in with the other ones. So I never got it back. They just sent me blank cards and they were like, here, you can draw another one. It's like, so yeah. But even though I had the fewest number of cards approved ever for a project, those cards, once they hit the secondary market on eBay, sent a benchmark. I have, up until Lord of the Rings last year, had not had any card come close to what collectors paid for.
Wow.
There was a Star Trek Alien set that I did, and I did, is it 7 of 9? Or 6 of 9, 7 of 9?
7 of 9. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That card, excuse me, sold for $910,
Cool.
which at the time had never happened. And then later that year, when Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out, there was one of Dark Willow that sold for 1,850. And
Goodness.
the card dealer actually sent me a message and thanked me. And that is the highest a card of mine has ever sold for.
$1,800.
Yep. And I took a screen cap of it and I'm like, my AP rates just went up. Yeah. But there were so few of my images, the rarity
Yeah.
of it, and then she was a principal character because I just drew vampires and demons. I really didn't draw that many other just actors, because after the Star Trek thing, I was like, I'm not wasting my time drawing stuff that
Yes.
people are gonna. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. The the Star Trek. I've never delved near Star Trek. I remember we were talking to Warren Martinek, and he's done so many Star Trek. He's done so many sketches. Full stop. So many Star Trek ones, and I've now kind of got an inkling to maybe. I feel the need to own a Martinek Enterprise. I just feel it calling me, and I know he's done fair few of them.
Warren is one of the nicest people I've ever worked with, and I believe at one point he was working with Robert,
He was, yeah,
as far as art directing. And Warren actually is putting out, I think it's been announced. I don't know if it's been released yet, but he did his own project, which is a
yes,
card game.
that's right.
And he invited me to do an image to be printed as part of the card deck. So that was really, really great of him. I know, and he did most of the artwork for the project. I got my comp copies, and it's like going through the card. It was Martinek, 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 Perna, Martinek, 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 Owens, Martinek, Martinek. So he did probably 75% of the artwork for it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
He did, bless him. He sent us a preview. My former co-host and I sent us a preview of it, which I've got over there, that arrived just at the point that my house was entering remodeling. So I haven't had a chance to properly dive into it. And then Norrin left, and it's just been crazy since then. So Warren, if you're listening, I'll get back to you, because I want Warren to come on and talk about it, so we can give him a bit of airspace for it, because he very kindly sent the preview. So I feel a bit bad for not getting back to him. So remind me at the end of this. I'm going to send him a message at least to say, I haven't forgotten you. Stop burning the little candle doll you've got of me, because it really hurts. And I promise I'll get back to you. So I need to ask you a question now. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you an image. Okay. And it's going to be this image. Okay. What's happening here? Talk to me, Rhi, because as someone who's been follically challenged for longer than I've been into trading cards, this picture, it impresses and scares me in equal measure. So where are you and what's happening here?
That is San Diego Comic-Con 2017. And I'm in Artist Alley. Up in the corner behind my hair, you see the purple with the swirly line.
That's your signature thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my trade show banner with my name on it. So I was asked to do a sketch while being recorded, because they were doing an article on artists in Artist Alley. And then, of course, they wanted to take a picture of the artwork with the artist afterwards. So obviously, Storm is my go-to, because it had to be done pretty quickly. Yeah. They were going to interview several of us. And because of my hair, they wanted, to have me do the thing. And it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek haha, because it's Mohawk Storm and I have a mohawk on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I happened, someone said, did you know you're on the internet? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, no, did you know you're on the internet with a mohawk? And I was like, yes. And they're like, did you know you're on the internet with a mohawk? There's an article about Comic-Con. And I was like, no. So they sent me a link. Yeah, this was part of an article that was written about artists in Artist Alley at comic book shows. And it was just kind of funny. Whenever someone's like, hey, I just need you to do a quick, because they just wanted it to look like I was working on something.
Yeah.
And I mean, Storm's a go-to. And I think a lot of us, whenever people's like, can we have a head sketch? We just do a profile, because it's easy, it's fast. There doesn't have to be any symmetry to the features. And of course, I've drawn Storm thousands of times. I could probably draw her in my sleep. So it was like, I just have to look down and talk while they're asking me questions and pretend like I'm working on a commission. I think I still have that in my art portfolio.
Okay. So inquiring minds need to know, real hair here?
No.
Okay.
No. And it's funny because I again, Jason Sobel and I set up at New York Comic-Con in 2014. And at one point, I think he got irritated because everyone who came to the table would talk about my hair.
Gotcha.
And at one point, he leans back and he goes, she's a really good artist, too. Ask her about her artwork. Like, I think he just got tired of hearing about his hair. The story about the hair, really quickly, is that when I started doing conventions in 2007, I didn't have a trade show banner. I didn't have any signs or like, hey, this is me. I didn't have anything. I literally just sat at a table with stuff all over it. I went, coincidentally, to San Diego Comic-Con in 2008. It was my 30th birthday. And I was like, I just want to do something silly. I'm away from home. So I had these are all hair pieces that I just kind of like stack in a row and then tease up really high and spray them. If I did that to my real hair as often as I used to travel, I would be bald. I mean, you and I would be twins. I would have no hair left.
Oh,
Um, so it, that year that I did it at San Diego, I couldn't walk 5 feet without someone asking to or running up and snapping a picture with me and then running off really quickly.
oh
And
wow.
I was like,
Okay.
oh, so this gets attention. I'm going to
Yeah.
start doing this all the time. So that kind of became my trademark at conventions, even after I got a trade show banner. The first year I had the banner behind me and didn't wear the mohawk, there was a guy who came to my table who slammed his fist down and cussed at me because he was so mad. He's like, I have been walking around this convention for hours looking for your mohawk. And I'm like, but my name is right there. Like, can you read? It's look, Rhiannon Owens, it's right there. He's like, I didn't think it was you because you don't have your hair up. And I was like, that's 45 minutes in the morning I get to sleep. If I'm gonna like, what? You're mad? Yeah, it I so at big shows like San Diego, I will still do it. Because it gets people's attention. And
Mm,
when we're all crammed in so tightly, because in San Diego you get 4 feet of table space total, um, and their artist alley is pretty small, but the aisles are fairly lengthy. You know, people who are 20 feet away will see that hair and like hone in on
gotcha.
it, and then they run to
Mm,
the table. So it's really just a gimmick to get people to come and look
yeah.
at my
Yeah.
um.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
So do you do, obviously COVID probably put a bit of a damper on the Cold Con experience for pretty much everyone.
yeah,
Are you back doing them now?
I am. Um, pre-COVID, I I I at one point was killing myself. I think I dove so hard into my work. There was, I've talked about this before. There was a period from about 2012 to about 2016 where things were just consistently not going well, and these were like big life altering things. And I dove into my work and traveled so much just to stay away from home because I was tired of waking up to bad news. If I was on the road or at a show, then I had a reasonable excuse
Mm,
to just kind of shut that off. Um, then I moved, got my head back on straight. Things started to even out. And then COVID hit, and everything just stopped.
mm.
And COVID was really devastating because we lost quite a few people. Jennifer Mercer, who started on XMen Archives with me, I believe. She passed
I
away.
didn't realize she'd passed. Oh my
That
goodness.
that was devastating because
Wow.
Jennifer and I both lived in Florida, so we were
Mm,
always at a lot of the same shows, and I got
mm.
to meet her mother, and she would always stop by the table, and we would talk. She called me sis, um, and I still have all of our messages. So she didn't pass from COVID, but she passed during COVID. So that was just one of the
Yeah.
peripheral things during that time. And as an artist, I work from home. I don't have medical insurance. So I could not risk getting sick. And luckily, I was able to catch up on a lot of work I owed people because I literally just stayed home. Now that we're on the other side of that, I have a friend who works for a convention company who he's like, hey, if you want to go to any of our shows, all you have to do is tell me you're coming. You just have to get there. You have a space, an extra badge for a table person if you bring a helper, and you can just set up wherever we are. So I've started doing that, which has been really great. And I actually just last month or the month February or March, they just run together for me.
Mm.
Was invited to go to Hawaii um,
Oh wow.
for a convention called Super Saturday Hawaii, and this is their second year doing it. And coincidentally, I'm going to get to meet a collector named Chris, who, like yourself, has been familiar with me since about 2008, 2009, but we've never actually
Is
met or
it
shared
Chris
space.
Inouye?
Yes.
He's been on this podcast.
Yeah.
Lovely
Oh,
fella.
and so since that came up, I was given permission when I did a podcast with you to tell you that he is the one that bought that black cat print for you and the silver
Oh,
print for Norin.
bless him.
So yeah.
Oh, that's kind.
But
Thank you, Chris.
yeah, he and I get to meet for the first time this summer. I actually just bought my plane ticket for that, and it it hasn't changed, but it has. I think people now going to conventions, they're super excited, but everyone's also looking over their shoulder.
Mm.
And I'm noticing a lot more cosplay with face masks. So like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, and
Yeah.
a lot of the villain characters who have like full face coverings.
Mm.
But yeah, I had a really great moment last year. The first or second show I went to, um, there was a gentleman whom I had not seen since probably 2013 or 14. And I had the mohawk on, and he comes around the corner and he goes, "Holy crap, it's Rhiannon Owens." And I'm like, "What?" And I look up, and his name is Kevin, and he had a goatee now, and he looked a little older, but still the same in his Hawaiian shirts with his backpack. And he had every sketchbook in that backpack I had ever drawn in for him. And my boyfriend, this was the first time. Oh, oh, that sketchbook. It was the first time my boyfriend had been to a convention with me, and he just thought it was the neatest thing.
We'll talk about
And
that in a
so,
moment.
yeah, I had sketches from 2009, 2010, and they were horrible.
Oh,
But, it was one of those really awesome moments of, on the other side of such a worldwide tragic thing
yeah.
that COVID was, reconnecting with someone who was just so genuinely excited to share space with people and see me again. That was probably one of the best moments of last year.
Wow.
With
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And he also has that sketchbook.
Well, let's. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about how it is before I pick that up again. How
Yeah.
is it? You've kind of touched on this a couple of times because you've been doing it for such a long time now.
Uh-huh.
Is there a? You sound like you've got a touch of the George Lucas about you. You know, George Lucas has got to go back and tinker with his Star Wars films every few years because he's not quite finished them and he's got to make it right until someone actually bought the whole thing off him to stop him from doing that. So thank you for
Yeah.
Disney for doing that. But obviously you can't go back and redo those cards, but you obviously do look at some of them and think, oh, maybe not my best work, or maybe I'd like to do that
Oh,
again.
yeah.
And is that because you've grown more comfortable, confident, improved in terms of your skills and your composition, or is it just like looking at teenage poetry for most of us? Is it just where is that kind of zone that when you look at other?
It's a little bit of everything. So I alluded to kind of like a really bad period of about 4 years, and have
Mm,
said a couple times, that when I first started, I did not know how to say no. So my boundaries were crap. And I just, in a lot of instances, excuse me, was just so excited to be able to do what I love. And make, a living off of it enough that I could support myself. But then later it turned into kind of a panic and an escapism. So I was really like just burying myself in obligation. And, here was this really awesome opportunity to go to a show I'd never been to, or go to a convention I had never gone to, or even go, like the Allentown shows, the Philly non-sport card shows for
mm,
a couple of years. Go hang out with people that I will never see unless I go to these shows. So I was just saying yes left and right. And then I also alluded to this earlier, I was taking on so much work and not paying close enough attention to the deadlines and when everything was due, that then it was, oh, I have 200 cards due in a week. Let me pull out my black and white pens and start scribbling as fast as I could. I'm very grateful and lucky at this point that when Upper Deck sends me a solicitation, they're like, we only need 20 cards. And I'm like, oh, thank God. um, so I don't feel like I'm sacrificing quality, whereas at one point I think I was.
gotcha.
But, there are also days, and I think a lot of collectors don't don't really think about this, some days we just don't want to draw. Some days we are exhausted. Some days we are emotional. Some days we're sick. Some days somebody like Jennifer Mercer has died and we're processing and grieving. Um, and it's just really hard to sit down and concentrate, even on a character like Storm that I've drawn 1,000 times, like a year. I just I just don't have it in me. So sometimes I do look back at my work and I'm like, oh, I know exactly where my head was when I did that picture or
Interesting.
whatever. So I try really, really hard now to have better boundaries about time management and also prioritizing self-care if I need to. I mean, I almost lost my mother during COVID. I had lost, other family members. I've lost family members in the last 3 months. And so sometimes I just get quiet or I don't post or whatever. But I look at my older artwork and I'm like, yeah, that proportion wasn't that great. That perspective was off. Those buildings, the lines aren't as perfect as they should be. And so I try to remember those mistakes moving forward.
Mm.
Because I don't want to take for granted that because I've been doing it for so long, or that so many people know me, or that so many people like my work, that I can just be lazy. I don't ever want to be that person. But I also don't ever want to sacrifice quality because I just have to get this done. And there's a couple companies that I don't work for anymore because in those moments when I was trying to be fair to myself, they were like, "Well, if you can't do any work for us, then we don't have any work for you moving forward." So, bye.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
but I this sounds probably more egomaniacal than I intended to because I don't intend it to sound this way. But I work for enough companies that if one of the smaller independent companies goes, we don't have anything for you, I'm like, okay, well, I've got 4 projects for Upper Deck this year. I'll be
Yeah. Gotcha.
fine. But I have worked over the last 14 and a half years. December was 14 years. To build up enough, I don't want to say clientele, but enough businesses and business relationships with people that I don't hurt for work. And I'm still getting messages from people who have known of my work since like you and I first interacted way
Yeah.
back in the day. And they're just like, I've always wanted a piece of your art in my collection. Do you have any APs available? So I'm very grateful and very lucky, but I also am holding myself more accountable these days. Whereas back then, in my early 30s, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So
Mm.
I just did as much as I could. Oh, Star Wars, sure, I'll do it. DC, yeah, I want to draw Wonder Woman. Oh, another Marvel project, we could draw whoever we want. Yay, I'm gonna draw the X-Men again. Um, so yeah.
Why not? Why not? We love a bit of X-Men.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And hopefully you'll take this in the spirit in which it's intended. But I know of many collectors who have the view that their collection has to have certain pieces in it by certain
Mhm.
artists. So they have to have. So a lot of people who are into sketches, Noah and I used to talk about this all the time. You've
Yeah.
got to have something in there from Tomy. You've got to have an Alex Magno in there. You've got to have a Tony Perner. You've got to have a Owens. It's like a staple thing. It's that kind of quality mark, I guess, especially, that Rittenhouse area. But I don't think people have cottoned onto it now. But that was a blessed time because there was a lot of sketch product. It was one sketch guaranteed per box, full color, on really good looking stock. And I've never heard anyone say that it wasn't good stock to work with. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that.
There was one project, ironically, SpiderMan Archives.
Oh, really?
Um, and it was a printing error. It wasn't that they got bad stock and then just let it slide. Some of the cards, and I think Cabby Chris,
Chris
why can't I
Bradbury.
remember his last? Yes,
Yeah,
Chris Bradbury.
yeah, yeah.
Um, he was one of the artists who just tried to make it work, but he was the first one back on those scoundrel boards who posted, is anyone else having the issue with these cards? So the UV coated backside that was slick was actually
Applied on the
printed
front.
on the front.
I
So
have heard someone tell me this. Yeah.
it was like drawing on plastic.
Yeah.
And we all use, or back then we were all using these Copic markers mostly. So it was like, on a dry erase board. It was horrible. That's the only time that I've ever heard of like, oh my God, this stock is horrible. There has been some questionable stock on a fairly just every once in a while basis. And it's not that the stock itself is bad. There's like this coating on it. So the marker, like the markers I use, they don't blend as well unless you just really oversaturate the surface. So it just creates more work for us. But if you can pull it off, it still looks good. It just takes a little bit more effort.
Yeah.
Other than that glossy stock, which there have been a couple, back when I did work for Unstoppable Cards years and years ago, there was an old Doctor Who project, and they did like Hammer Horror and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Their cards were slick like that. But I mean, it's so few and far between.
Yeah.
It's not often enough that it's like, oh, I can't work for this company. Their cards are always crap.
You've had a fair few IPs. I mean, we've talked about them. I've jotted down here. I'm sure I saw an Alien sketch of yours. Did you do Aliens?
The old horror movies?
No, Aliens, the Upper Deck set.
Oh, the Star Trek Aliens?
No, Aliens, as in Sigourney Weaver, as in.
Oh no, no. So last summer was actually the very first time that I ever drew a xenomorph ever.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I haven't worked with Upper Deck in or not Upper Deck. I'm sorry. No, yeah, Upper Deck. No, I Rittenhouse I haven't worked with in a while. Upper Deck kind of just keeps me in the comic lane. Although they did a cosmic set that was like universe and planets and stuff back in 2017 or 18, I think.
Okay.
I did some of those, but mostly Upper Deck, all I do is just the comic stuff. But what's funny is last year I did a xenomorph for the first time ever, and then someone saw it and liked it so much they commissioned me for one.
Oh wow.
Look, it's right here.
Oh, it's almost like you were prepared. Look at this. Oh, that's nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I mean, I love horror movies. I love all of that genre. But I just have to mail it off. Done. But he liked it so much now he wants a Predator. So,
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So we've got Star Wars, Star Trek, not an official Aliens. You've got Doctor Who. You've got what else? You've got the Marvel stuff. DC stuff.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean,
Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks. Now that looks like a ton of fun to work on.
It is. I am prepared. I just don't have them like right here.
No, that's good.
But I do have them right here.
Because I see the promos coming through Non-Sport Update, and they're sets that I wouldn't normally get into, but some of the stuff I see in the articles they do.
These are literally the tiniest things I have ever had artwork printed on.
What are they?
So back in 2020, Sidekick Media, which is a division of Topps, asked me. Adam Levine was the art director. He said, "Hey, so you've done some Mars Attack stuff, yeah?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you have any interest in doing some stuff that would be printed?" And I was like, "Yes." So they had me do 10 little images, and then they printed them as like vintage tobacco cards.
Oh, yeah, that's the size they look like. Yes.
So,
oh my goodness me.
Yeah, tiny. But then each one has a name, and then it has my name on the back of it as well, which is really cool. what was really fun about these was there were a couple characters that they very much were like, okay, so here's this guy. Like this is an established alien general from some comic book or something. And then some of them had very specific costume designs. But I got to draw like national monuments. So like this is Mount Rushmore, this is the Eiffel Tower,
Mm-hmm.
this is the Golden Gate Bridge, the Great Wall of China, Easter Island, Las Vegas, um, the Statue of the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, Taj Mahal, Stonehenge, and yeah, and each one is different. Um, so that was a lot of fun. I've done a ton of Red Sonja, Vampirella, Lady Death. Um,
Red Sonja?
yeah,
I imagine I've never seen a Red Sonja by you. I imagine you'd absolutely kill, because I've well, from my perspective, I only collect a female character, but I'm immensely drawn to the lady characters that you draw. I'm just going to the sketchbook now, actually. Um, we've got Phoenix in here. We've got Jean Grey, obviously same character. Who else we got in here? Scarlet Witch.
want to see
Um,
something exciting?
tell me, hit me.
Look,
Oh,
so this is
this is
one of the
where I
ones.
could change lanes. You see, these are the kind of things I could change lanes for.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm currently working on that. They're due in 2 weeks. But yeah, I've done so when Bright marketing was still a thing. I did Red Sonja and Vampirella for them. And then when Five Finity was still working
mhm.
on card projects, I did She, which was an old Billy Tucci comic, like a female assassin character. I did that for them. Uh, I've done Hammer horror movies, the older Doctor Who, um, a lot of very scantily dressed women for Axbone.
Yeah, yes.
And Axbone really, I think, part of what he did was, he draws very voluptuous women to the point where when Disney got the Marvel license, a lot of his work was not being approved. So he was losing a lot of money, time, and materials. So he just
Mm,
started his own company.
mm,
Um, when he did that, it exploded because within the next year, here comes Galen sketch cards,
yeah.
contemporary pinups.
Red Life.
Red Life had started. The Pernas, I think, started their first project was in 2012, 2011 or 2012. Um, and it was just, hey, if you want to do your own thing, you don't have to wait for a card company to make the project you want to work on. You can just make it happen by yourself.
Mm,
Um, and so there were a lot of independent companies that sprang up
yeah.
after Axbone did his thing, and he has since retired because after a while, because there were so many companies to work for and so many projects, a lot of collectors were like, oh, the market's oversaturated. There's too much to choose from. I'm out. And they just stopped. And
Mm,
so some artists also were just like, I'm burnt out. I don't want to draw anymore. I need a break. And he wasn't getting the level of commitment that he was when he first started. So it was very frustrating for him, like wrangling a herd of cats to try to get people to stick to their commitment and whatnot. So he was just like, yeah, I think I'm done. But he's since retired his day job and now he just draws for a living as a hobby.
yeah.
So he's rediscovered his love for it. But he likes not having to produce and worry about deadlines
Yeah.
and to keep their commitment.
Yeah. We've been trying to hook up with him to get him on. I say I have for a while now. I hadn't realized he'd kind of stepped off in that way, but I remember when the first few Axbone sets came out, Bad Axe Studios, that's it.
Yeah.
Treasure Chest and Booty, Dungeon Dolls, I went in hard for a couple of artists from each set.
Yeah.
And it was just wonderful because just the base cards and the breadth of artists who would, I mean, I don't know if you've done them, but you still see artists doing promo cards for Ed Webb and Sci-Fi Cards, and a lot of the guys that were on the Axbone sets and a lot of the guys who are on the Perna sets, have been, were on Scoundrel back when, it was a thing. And they're still swinging. They might not be doing it as a living anymore, but they're still pitching in for people like the Pernas who are still, producing content.
I have done a promo card for Ed. I have He's probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. And I
Mm.
did actually get to meet him several times over the years. K&J Non-Sports, Kevin,
Oh, Kevin. Yeah, yeah.
also very nice.
Card Bud, I think he is on eBay.
Yeah. He was going to do a card set of his own at one point and actually paid a handful of us
Oh,
to do
wow.
some artwork for it, but it never actually ended up happening.
Okay.
So these are all cards of my artwork that have been printed by a company.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, and it's just kind of like a little visual history of like the work that I've done. Uh, so like I have 9 from Dangerous Divas, I have 9 from Women of Marvel. All of my Axbone cards are in here. Here's something that did not really get mass produced, so this might be interesting. So Lady Death did this is Fivefinity. They did
Yeah.
Lady Death and Hack Slash.
Oh, Hack Slash. Yeah, yeah.
So this is my artwork on both sides of the card. This one is signed by Stephen, who was the president of Fivefinity, and then also the creator of Lady Death.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Um, there's only 5 of these cards in existence, or no, 5 of these because these are signed in silver,
With it.
and then there's 10 of these in existence because they're signed in black, and then these were the more common ones. It's signed by the creator on both sides. They sent those to me as a thank you because these were both sketch cards I turned in for the project, and they're like, "Hey, do you mind if we use these to make like a really rare off thing?" And I was like, "You can do what you want." So I have like little fun things like that. Um, Treasure Dress and Booty, the first promo that I
Oh,
did.
beautiful.
Um,
I love that set.
and then Iconic Literature
Oh,
out of Greece.
Achilles Kokonakis. Yeah,
Yes. So I've done some cards for them. I mean, there's like literally, here's the card I did for Ed Webb like 10 years ago,
that's right. I
which
think I've
was
got
his
that.
promo for the Philly Non-Sports Card Show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's like cards in here for a company. I did one and then they just never did another project. There's like a dozen here for Axbone because we did like promos and things like that. For me, it's just a little collected visual history of like what I consider milestones.
Mm,
Because a lot of collectors don't realize that our work doesn't always get printed or it's not always
hmm
included. I mean, we'll do 100 sketches and maybe 60 of them never see the light of day because they get damaged in transit or they just those boxes that they get put in never get found. Um, so yeah, I it was just kind of like a little thing for me to kind of like when I really feel like I don't know if I can do this anymore, and I look at that, and I guess I can. I can do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it must be nice to look at. I do want to look at this sketchbook because I remember I bought this from you. It's back in 2010, 2011, I think.
That thing is so old.
And I've
Um,
just realised I completely forgotten that. Of course, you did that in the back for me
yeah,
with my name on her collar. That's wonderful.
yep. I haven't seen that since I mailed it to you.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And I that was something that I did on my own.
And there she
Oh,
is,
that card. That is
Ground
my
Zero.
baby.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, even this, I had only been doing sketch cards for 2 years at that point, less than 2 years. Yep. And I I think I just self-published this just to do it because it was kind of like the normal thing.
Yeah, loads of people were
Um,
doing them.
and then 2 years later, I did a Kickstarter project. And let's talk about Kickstarter for a second.
Let's talk about Kickstarter.
So in 2011, and then right into the beginning of 2012, I did two back to back, one on my own and one with Axbone. The one with Axbone still has not been finished, um, which it is the thing that haunts me. That that particular Kickstarter project uh, with him has been so difficult to finish, and I don't know if it's just that we're stubborn or we refuse to give up, but we are hell-bent on making it happen even 11 years later. um so all the artwork is done, all of the rewards are done, they've been done for years. Now our issue is finding someone who can put the book together. So it's not a matter of we don't have a printer, because we do. It's not a matter of the artwork not done. It is the person that, so when I did my Kickstarter in 2011, it was so overly funded that I just kept adding content to it. So there's two books from that one, and then a hardcover, which the hardcover was the main thing. The person who did those agreed eventually. He's like, yeah, if you want to do that book with Axbone, I can make it happen. So we were working on that during COVID, actually right before COVID hit. The rewards were done. I had posted updates on my Facebook page. And then his mother passed.
Mm.
And then his father, who has Alzheimer's, developed dementia so bad that he became his 24/7 caretaker.
Yeah.
And now it's like, he's like, hey, I'm still in, but now I'm in the process of getting married. I don't have the time to do it. So it's like, there's always something, but we're like, for anyone, because this has been brought up, and there have been a few moments, even on the Facebook group, where people have said, oh, well, what about this? You ran off with our money. No, we didn't. Uh, it's still gonna happen. It's just a matter of getting this guy to sit down and put the book together, because it's all ready to go. It's just not formatted. And
Mm.
Axbone and I, we have both tried on several different like, he has Photoshop, I have other programs to try to format it. And then when we've sent it off, they're like, oh, this isn't in the right format. We need you to convert the pages to this in order for us to print. And both of us are like, what? Like, we
Mm.
have tried several times to get this thing finished. I even there's a folder on my Facebook art page of artwork specifically for this project. And I got messages from people going, don't show us everything before you make the book. We don't want to, like, we've been waiting so long. Don't take the surprise away. And then I was like, well, we can't, damned if we do, damned if we don't. So
Mm.
for anyone who is waiting for that, we haven't forgotten. It's still going to happen. We're just trying to get this last part finished so we can put it out.
Gotcha.
That is something that comes up every once in a while. And so just so people know that it's like not something we've blown off. And they're like, well, why is it taking so long? Literally the month after the project was funded, Axbone's now deceased ex-wife was having blackouts and seizures literally at her work. She passed out and cold cocked her head on a desk. She was a special education teacher.
Wow.
I went and lived with him for 3 months to help look after her, because he had at one point taken so much time off of his day job that he was in danger of being fired because he just was never at work. Because I work from home and have the free time, I literally moved in with him for 3 months and sat in the living room at a makeshift desk just to keep an eye on her and take her to doctor's appointments so he could go back to
Mm.
work. Like,
Mm.
we have tried so often over the
Mm.
years
Mm.
to try to get this finished, and it's always something. Because then once he got all the work to me, because this is a jam piece, right? So
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
had to be drawn by him and colored by me. Once I got all the work, then it was like, oh, now it's my turn. This was when I started blacking out because my blood pressure was so high. This was when my daddy died. Like, all this other stuff. And it's
Mm.
just consistently been one thing after another. Then it was COVID. It's it is something that we are like, we're gonna get this done, but we just never know when it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So for
Keep pushing.
anyone, yeah, anyone who cares or anyone who wants to know, you are welcome to contact me. I'll give you the timeline. If you want the list of epic life kicks in the gut, I've got it all. So, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I have a folder full of work. I literally have, look, everything's right here. Artwork that's going to be in it, reward tiers, like all kinds of just, it's just sitting here waiting to be put together. So, hey, if anyone can
It
do
will
that,
happen. Yeah,
let me
actually,
know.
this is the point. This we will probably have someone who's able to do that. Have you spoken to Ingrid Hardy? Because she did her
I'm
art of
not.
sketch cards books.
Mm-mm.
Did three of them. So
No,
you
I have
might want to
not.
drop her a line.
All right.
Yeah, hit her up. Because she does her own podcast now, Penciled In Podcast, which I don't know if you've been on yet, but I'm
I
sure
have
they'll be
not.
calling. I'm sure they'll be calling. They've been talking to all sorts of artists from all, because her and her co-host have worked with the many of the greats.
Cool.
So, what would you say? I'm just curious on your perspective now. Coming up 15 years in the game, what's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest kind of change you've seen in the hobby in terms of both the sketch cards and where they sit within the hobby, but also just generally?
The amount of money that people spend now compared to 15 years ago, it's insane. Um, you know, when I first started, the chase sets were, 9 card puzzles or, 9 card subsets like the ones I did for Women of Marvel and Dangerous Divas of just one image. Now they're doing like these like one of one parallel sets, like the prisms and the colors and the whatever. So you have your base set, and then there's an orange, a purple, a red, a green, and a whatever. And each color is subsequently less and less copies of it. So it makes it more expensive or rare. People are still arguing about whether it's, smart to slab or grade your cards, but the amount of money they're spending, tens of thousands of dollars for one card. And then they get mad at us when they're like, your APs are $200. That's too expensive. Let me go buy a $20,000 one of one card. I'm just like, okay. Um, so the amount of money that people are spending has definitely exploded.
Mm,
Uh, the number of sets, the amount of content has gone up a little. It hasn't changed, but Upper Deck will have me do 4 or 5 projects a year, and then there's another 3 or 4 that I didn't even hear about. So they're constantly soliciting artists, but they're congruently running maybe 3 or 4 projects at a time.
okay.
Like I had a deadline last month. I have 2 deadlines this month for them. We've already talked about 2 more coming later in the year. So there's a little bit more content. And I think some things that haven't changed. I mean, there's obviously still such a wonderful fan base of people who love the new artwork, the collecting, the hunting,
Mm,
um there's still that same level of, hey, I know you're looking for this, and they'll tag someone in a comment, hey, was it you that had this? He's looking for it. Or, that kind of
yeah,
camaraderie and friendship, which is really
yeah,
great. That's one of my favorite parts of the hobby, because when I was collecting, people were, it wasn't just that, oh, she's an artist, like we have to kiss her ass. It was, oh, I know you really love this. If I find it, I'll let you know, or I'll
yeah.
steer you in the right direction. I love that. That to me is what is the better part of this community. Um, and there have been a couple times where people are like, hey, tell us who your favorite artist is. And after being in it for so long and knowing that there are so many amazingly talented other artists, people will still bring my name up. That encourages me to not stop and to keep producing artwork and staying in the genre. I don't know that I've really seen any bad changes. I know with certain licenses they have cracked down on the kind of content. You can't draw Wolverine smoking his cigar or drinking his
Mm,
beer. Um, Axbone walked away because you can't draw overly busty women, or you can't draw people who are too suggestive. And it's
mm.
it's interesting because even now, I've had cards rejected in the last 2 years, and my art director has even written me and said, I don't understand why these were rejected, but unfortunately, like these didn't make it. So it's the challenge. I guess maybe one of the differences, the challenges for me as an artist. I'm known for drawing the female characters. I like drawing the female characters, but I have to be extra careful how I draw them now, because even the smallest little tiny cleavage line will get a card disapproved.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of that, so okay, here's one of the biggest challenges. One of the things that negatively has changed over the years. People who come into the hobby who are not aware of the rules, the restrictions, the contracts that we sign, because there have been so many artists at this point who just don't care, or they've walked away, so they break the rules on purpose because they no longer care if they work
Hmm.
on this stuff. They have created a level of expectation that this will be done in an hour. So as soon as you give me your money, you're going to get an immediate turnaround. There is no approval necessary. Yes, there is. And then also, I can draw, you know, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow and Halle Berry as Storm and Chris Evans as Captain America, all on one card fighting each other or all hugged up on each other, whatever. And then I'm like, no, I can't do that. Oh, do you not draw likenesses? No, I legitimately by contract am not allowed to draw that content. Well, I got this card from this artist. Well, I'm not that artist. So sometimes the pushback of, well, what do you mean there are rules? It's just artwork. Like
Mm.
they just don't get it. And then when you try to explain it to them, they think you're either full of crap or, oh, well, you just must not want my money. There's even been conversations, I think, in the Marvel groups where people were like, do we really have to wait for approval? And then there's like 70 comments of people like, well, I don't know why we have to, but yes, we should, or here's why we have to. And that's probably been the most negative change and the most frustrating thing as an artist, to have
Mm.
that
Mm.
conversation,
Mm.
because you want people to get what they want, and you
Of course.
certainly want them, if they are looking specifically for your work as an artist to add to their collection. Sure, I would love to do that for you, but I can't on this card. I could do it as a pin up, a 9 by 12, which is interesting because our regular commission rates on non-licensed cardstock are usually half or much cheaper, but they want that official
Yeah.
card with the logos
Yeah.
and the thing. And so if that's not what you can give it to them on, they don't want it. So yeah, that's probably the biggest headache, compared to back then. Because back then everybody knew there was an
Of
approval
course.
process,
Yeah.
there were rules, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially on Scoundrel, for example, there were so
Yes.
many artists on there. There was such a even greater than MCCW, and I'm blessed to have as many artists as we have in MCCW. But the Scoundrel was such a unique mix because there were so many artists in there. I mean, I remember when a new set was dropping, and the artists would be posting and say, if anyone finds my cards, and these are the ones that I did for it, or there'd be a character or artist identification thread, and this artist would pipe up and say, yeah, that's one of mine. This is this character, and yada yada yada. And it was just lovely to see. And a lot of that, it's all still online. A lot of the images have gone because Photo Bucket, who remembers their Photo Bucket login? So yeah, well, yeah, I know you would, but um, I I do find it interesting that the stock does carry a lot of premium, and it really does for people. I'm blessed to have bought this off another collector that you did in 21. That's the
Yeah.
only oversized one of yours I have.
And that is one of the last uh Rittenhouse blanks. I had,
Beautiful. I'll just put that in close. I mean, that's what's that broken glass going on there? It is, isn't it? She just smashed her way through a window. I love it.
yep.
I love it. I think there's some
Um,
coins floating in the air as well. There are, and you've done them in gold ink.
yeah,
This is brilliant. I love the light in this room. I'm able to see that.
I
It's
love that
great.
you've had that card for a little while and you are still just seeing these details like,
I'm no,
oh,
but I do.
surprise.
But I do. Even when I was looking at cards that are in here, every time
Yeah.
I look at, and this is why these are the ones I kept. I mean, you might have seen I had over 200 Black Cat sketches on licensed stock, and I've trimmed it down to just 79. Um, and I've probably still got about half of the ones that I'm parting with left. I'm gradually selling them as people spot them that they like. Um, and the 79 is no kind of, I mean, there are a couple of really obvious things. So, for example, one of yours I parted with because I realized after all these years that Spider-Man's hand is on her shoulder. She's cracking a safe, and Spider-Man's hand is coming in, going, "Oi, what are you doing?" And if she's on a card, if she's on a sketch card with any other character, I can't do it. I don't want anyone with my girl. I just want my girl solo. Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't apply to like printed base cards or anything like that.
Right.
You know, she could be amongst a crowd of hundreds, and in fact, some of them she is. Um, but every one of these, every time I look at it, I spot something different each time because I'm in a different light or I'm in a different room, or it's just amazing. Have you? And we'll be talking about these on an upcoming episode because you know who I'd said who we were recording with in a couple of weeks. Um, have you had the blessing of having the group trading card stock?
No, I didn't even know that you made that.
No, to be fair, I didn't. Jalen Warner, bless him, made it. And I've got two pieces. One, Michael Munshaw
Mm-hmm.
did that. And the other one is Ron Lim.
The comic artist Ron Lim.
Yeah,
That's awesome. It's a beautiful
he
sketch.
got a batch of them. So basically, what Jay had done, I think he's just run out of them. So we're probably going to look at doing a fresh batch, possibly with a different design. But
Mm-hmm.
Jay got them printed off his own recognizance, and what we kind of agreed was they'd only be sent to artists who had worked on any official Marvel card set.
Mm.
So that's kind of obviously this is it's like a PSC for the group, I guess.
Yeah,
But only Marvel card artists can have them. And then
that's
they
really
can, and then they can draw, they have to be Marvel characters on them. But
yeah.
after that, so it's up to you. So, but no, they didn't really get publicized very well for reasons. So, so the second batch,
Mm-hmm.
we'll probably do a bigger push, and we'll have more than just Jay dissing them out. Bless him, because I think he's been the sole distribution hub for them, sending them to artists. So, but yeah, no, I'm sure we'll get some to you, and you can have
That would
fun.
be amazing.
You can have fun because you don't have to wait for approvals.
I hate look, I hate the approval process, and it's for no other reason other than when you tell people, oh no, I haven't gotten to your commission yet. I've been really busy. Oh, what have you been working on? I can't show you. So now you sound like you're full of crap and you're just blowing them off. Um, I started doing this during COVID just as a way to remind myself to take a break. I started keeping a log of the amount of artwork I did in a year.
Wow.
In 2021, I did 338 pieces of art. Now, each individual card I drew counted as one. But like 9x12s, convention sketches, APs, all of it, right? In 2022, last year, I did 587.
Wow.
And, you know, when I lived in Florida still, I would go out with my friends. I would be at a baseball game. I would be sitting in a diner at 2 o'clock in the morning after a movie. And I would be sitting there working on card projects. And I remember my friends, like anytime they saw me with this one particular brown, heavy over the shoulder bag, they were like, oh, she's going to be working. Um, and so now I'm in a relationship now, which I wasn't back then. So, I prioritize spending time with my boyfriend. And actually having a life outside of this space where I work.
Mm, mm.
Um, I just moved in with him and he goes, you will not draw in the bedroom. You will not get up in the morning and go sit at a desk across from the bed where you sleep and work. You need a dedicated workspace. And he'll come and tap me on the shoulder at 1 o'clock in the morning. He's like, are you ready to go to bed? Because you've been working for 13 hours today. Maybe
Mm,
you need to
mm.
get up and walk around. Um, there's so much work that we do that just we have to wait forever. Um, I know people are aware of it. Marvel Masterpieces from last year, which has not been released yet.
Mm.
Um, I love that project. I love working on that project, and that card stock is always really lovely. There's 60 images by me that I'm waiting to show off that I can't yet, and I have to sit on it.
6-0. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And trying to explain that to people like, oh, I've been working, just not on your thing, but no, I can't show you either. Oh, no, you can show me. Send me a picture. No, I cannot. I will not because I don't know you. I don't know
Mm.
if you're going to show someone or email someone and then it's out there on the internet. Like, and some people are like, why are you such a stickler for rules? Why is this such a big deal to you? I'm like, because this is my job.
Mm.
And Marvel is, since day one, probably 75% of the work I do in a given month. I won't jeopardize it. I will not risk losing the ability to do this because having, this may sound really weird, but having the Marvel brand attached to my resume is a big deal.
Yeah.
That is how I got in to San Diego Comic Con as an artist twice. That is how, I get invited to do conventions in Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii. I didn't know people in Hawaii other than Chris knew who I was. So the gentleman that reached out to me, his name is Corey. Hi, Corey. He's like, I've been a fan of your work and I really love your card art. And, I was asked to find artists for this show, and you were one of the first people I thought of.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Chris Foreman is actually going with me. He was one of the other
Ah,
artists.
Chris is
He was
cool. Yeah, yeah.
also, yeah, also a card artist. So I get to meet Chris for the first time. We've been friends via the internet, but we've never actually met
Yes.
face.
I believe I
So
have a Chris Foreman here. Yes, I do.
yeah, yay, yeah,
Look at that. It's almost Tomb Raider like because she's got the thing on her leg.
yeah. I love it. I like all the lasers in the background,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and it's just when you are on the other side of the table, when you are collecting and you are not working and you don't know the ins and outs, it's hard to understand. Sometimes you don't want to know.
Mm,
Um, and so, having those conversations sometimes you're like, oh, you're such a stick in the mud. I'm like, well, yeah, because I don't want to lose this job. I
mm,
don't
mm,
want to
mm.
lose, our current art director for Upper Deck is probably one of the nicest people I've worked for at that company since I
Is it
started
is it Matt?
2012. Yes,
Yeah,
Matt Dunford. And
that's it.
Matt is the first art director since I stopped working for Rittenhouse who actually will respond to my emails with scans, and he's like, "Read this is beautiful. This card and this one really stands out, and oh, I love that you did all these spider characters, and I love that you did all these different Iron Man suits. I'm drawing guys now, which will blow people's minds. But he gives me positive feedback, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Mm,
I'll ask questions, and he's like, I don't have the answer for that, but let me pull in this other person from this other department. I will let you know. And he's very communicative. He's very positive reinforcement and lots of feedback. I love working with that guy.
good.
But I'm not going to risk getting in trouble and messing that up. And I don't
Mm,
care who else has. I don't care who else will. I'm not that person. So
mm,
yeah,
good. All right.
I'm a fuddy duddy.
No, no, I just completely understand, completely understandable. I so what's coming up that you can tell us? you're involved in? What can we expect from Studio Re over
I
the next
don't
year?
know if it's been announced. Um, so I just finished an Avengers centric project for Upper Deck. I don't remember the name of it
Is
offhand.
it Allegiance Avengers versus X-Men?
I'm actually still working on it. That's the one
Oh,
that's due at the end of the month.
okay.
You can't see the sketch, but you can see the back of the card. um,
They've solicited that one, so you're okay.
okay, so I'm on that one. Um,
If you
has
say
anime?
if you say stuff and it's not been, I will bleep it.
Okay.
Okay. So
Um,
Anime 2 has been
oh,
solicited.
so anime two, I'm on.
Hmm.
I just finished an AP for someone last night for that. Um, what else? Uh,
There's quite a lot of MCU
this
sets coming out as well. I don't know if you're on any
yeah,
of those.
this just says Avengers, but I know there was something else attached to it. Um, this was the one that I turned in last month.
Okay.
Uh, I don't. It literally the front of the card just says Avengers, Marvel Avengers artist sketch card. But I think there was like a UCC or something in front of it. I don't even know what that means. Um, uh, there's a new Women of Marvel coming.
Yes, yes, that's been rumored. Yeah.
I'm on it. Um,
Of course you are.
of course. Well, so
You are a woman of Marvel.
well, one of the best things about Matt was, he would send me things and solicit things, and I'd be like, I'm really not. Yeah, I was like, so I wrote him and I said, premiere masterpieces, anything X-Men centric and
Hmm.
anything that is female centric, I want on it. Anything else, I could care less about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Marvel Midnight Suns, uh, which I don't know if that's been solicited or not, but I'm on it.
Yeah, it's now there's two ways of describing the scenario here. There are sets that have been officially solicited by Upper
Mm-hmm.
Deck, and
Yeah.
there are sets where artists have decided to solicit them by showing the backs of the cardstock. So yes, that has been seen. So you certainly aren't the first on that one. And I'm not sure entirely, what the process is, whether or not they get a slap on the wrist for things like that, but it happens all the time.
I think the reason why they try to crack down on that so hard is because all the delays.
Yeah, of
So
course.
if you create a fervor for something and
Hmm.
people are like, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? When's it coming out? And then by
Hmm.
the time it comes out, they've exhausted their expendable cash on three other sets because they
Of
got tired of
course.
waiting.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
they
yeah,
lose money.
yeah.
Um, and it's the same thing around AP approval. It's, someone asked me, actually, this WandaVision AP I just finished, or
Mm.
this anime AP I just finished. He's like, can I see it? And I said, no. And he goes, why? It's mine. I said, yeah, it is. But if I show you this and then for whatever reason it doesn't get approved, you have to wait for me to get a new card, redraw it, send it in for approval again. And if that doesn't get approved, then you're going to lose interest and you're going to want your money back, which,
Mm.
if you want your money back, that's fair. But I would hate showing you something that we both love. And then Marvel's like, nah, it's not, you can't send it
Yeah,
back
yeah,
in, cut
yeah.
it up, destroy it, whatever. And then I'm like, I don't want to disappoint you and I don't want to get your hopes up and then have to go like, it's like yanking the rug out from under you.
Mm.
Psych. um, so yeah, it's, uh, so those projects for Marvel, I'm also doing very apprehensively. I'm doing two projects for two different companies in China.
Okay.
Um, one of them is Deep Alley Studios. I don't remember the name of the other one because I think when he sent me the email, it was written in Chinese.
Okay.
um, yeah. I was working with what was that company? Uh, they just vanished last year after people have been working for them for months, and there's actually quite an uproar about it because that particular company did not pay everyone.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was lucky that everything I did for them I got paid for. But then the last three projects of the year before I started, they were like, "Yeah, so we're going to rebrand. We're not doing this anymore." But two other companies from China got a hold of me, and so I'm doing two projects for them. There's the Red Sonja 50th anniversary from Dynamite. I'm doing that, and I think that's it. Not that that's
Well, that's enough. That's
yeah,
enough. That's enough.
yeah.
So you're going to a con in Hawaii.
Yes,
Any other cons people can expect to see you at?
yes. I was going to go to Heroes Con and volunteer with the Heroes Initiative booth. If you don't know what Heroes Initiative is, you should definitely look it up. It's awesome. Um, I unfortunately had to cancel that to go to Hawaii because I will be making money in Hawaii as opposed to spending money to get to Heroes.
Yeah, yeah.
At the end of July, I'm doing GalaxyCon in Raleigh. It's the last
Okay.
weekend in July.
Yeah.
Um, Labor Day weekend, GalaxyCon this year is doing Austin, Texas for the first time. So I will be there. And then I will be appearing in Columbus, Ohio for the first time the first weekend in December for GalaxyCon Columbus.
Oh wow.
Um, GalaxyCon is the show that my friend Patty Hawkins works with. And they currently, I think they have 4 shows. They just did Richmond in March. I did Richmond last year. I wasn't able to
Mhm.
go this year because I was visiting family in Texas. So Hawaii, the second or third weekend of June, which is Super Saturday Hawaii, GalaxyCon Raleigh at the end of July, GalaxyCon Austin Labor Day weekend, and then GalaxyCon Columbus the first weekend in December. Those are the only shows that I'm slated to go to this year. Um, Not that that's not enough on top of everything else, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
no,
those are
oh, it's cool. Oh, it's cool that you'll be out and people will be able to go and see you at one of those.
yeah.
So I'm sure there'll be people who'll be up for that. Um, I'm going to circle us into land so that you can go and get some breakfast because I'm sure you probably need to.
I'm hungry.
What would a typical re-breakfast consist of on a Sunday?
I actually usually don't eat breakfast.
I've got no idea why I'm
I'm
asking you
usually
what you're
still
about to
asleep.
eat. I've never asked anyone that before. I
Um,
just kind of fancied asking you. It sounds really weird.
so I if I eat breakfast, I generally like um eggs done any number of ways. I love bacon, any kind of potato. So we call them hash browns or home fries
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Um, if I sleep late enough in the day and it's close enough to lunchtime, if I have leftovers from the night before, I'll usually just eat leftovers. I actually planned on making some egg sandwiches. So I was going to fry some eggs, put some cheese in
Oh,
them,
oh,
and
lovely.
then toast the bread and do that. So I will probably do that when we wrap up.
Okay, you are now
Um,
making me hungry. So,
yeah.
and I
Well,
am for once, I'm not cooking this evening. It's normally I cook on a Sunday. My wife is cooking a vegan roast. So I'm assuming that means it's going to be a roast, but everything is vegan. Not that she's going to roast a vegan, which would be a whole different ballgame and would probably have the authorities interested.
might be arrested for that.
Yeah, could well be, and I'm sure my daughter will turn her nose up in it because she's fussy because she's 7. Where I'll put the links in the show notes, but just so that people know whereabouts can people find you on the interwebs.
Okay. Um, so you can find me in the MCCW group. And then there's also the Marvel Masterpieces group.
MMC, yeah, sister
Yeah,
group to
so
MCCW, yeah.
I'm in that one.
Hmm.
I am a moderator with Lackland and Diana Greenlaw on the Sketch Card Fanatics. So
Yep.
on Facebook, those are the card groups that I'm a part of. Um, I have a Facebook art page that is literally just Rhiannon Owens with the word art at the end of it. Um, on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Rhiannon Druitt, Drewit. I did join TikTok. I rarely use it. That's Rhiannon Owens 724.
I don't
I have a
understand TikTok. I can't do it.
it,
The kids these days, I don't know. I can't keep up.
um I actually have a relationship with a new marker company named Olo Marker, OLO. So I actually joined TikTok so that we could cross promote.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
But I have an affiliate code to get a discount for their product, which has been really awesome. But Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of social media. If I didn't have to utilize it for
Mm,
what I do for work, I probably wouldn't be
mm.
on it because it's a life soul sucking leech. It eats up so much time, and you really can see the worst in people on social media
Oh, good
sometimes.
grief, yes. Oh, good grief, yes.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a headache. But yeah, so I'm
yeah.
on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok rarely.
What's the expression? A necessary evil.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is very much that. Um, but
Here's
yeah,
here's a question for you. As
sure.
one of the you're either gonna slap me or grimace when I say this, as one of the old timers in the hobby.
Mhm.
Um, Deviant. Do you keep up with that? Deviant
Oh, I
Art.
am on DeviantArt. I am.
Yeah.
Um, I I did not log into DeviantArt for years. Um, up until last year. It's still active. I actually did add some content to it. I don't keep up with it like I used to,
Mm,
but I am on DeviantArt. Dangerous Beauty hyphen 778, I think is it.
that's it. Yeah, hang on, it's in the back of your sketchbook. Dangerous
Yeah,
hyphen beauty 778.
yeah. Um, and I have I mean you can message me on any platform. If you message my art page, I get it directly. If you
Yeah.
try to message me on my personal page, it goes to a filtered, message
Oh,
request because if we're
message
not
request. Yeah, yeah,
friends.
yeah,
I
yeah.
tend to keep my personal Facebook page for like really close friends and family, and I do all my business on all the other
Mm.
platforms.
Yeah, I try
Um,
and do that.
because it's just too much to keep up with otherwise.
Mm, mm.
Like I someone sent me a message the other day and I didn't see it because I had an uncle that passed last month and I was dealing with family messages. So his message was like way down here. And I kept seeing that I had a message and I would like scroll and scroll and I couldn't find it. And then he actually messaged me again yesterday and I saw that I had not responded to him. And I'm like, I'm so sorry I didn't see your message. He's like, it's okay. I just wanted to check in with you and see how you were. Um,
Oh, that's cool.
so yeah, but if you send messages to the Facebook art page,
Mm.
um, or the Instagram, I know to like, especially on Instagram, if we don't follow each other, I know to look,
Yeah,
where it'll say
of
message
course.
request.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, because I've actually been getting quite a few card collectors messaging me on Instagram lately about APs.
That's the thing. Instagram really is. That's the thing about Deviant. I find since Instagram didn't exist back in Scoundrel days when everyone was using Deviant as their kind of
Mm-mm.
online portfolio, I guess would be the best way to
Yeah.
describe it. Instagram is so much more, well, mobile friendly for that sort of
Yeah.
thing. That's what people are using it for, doing reels, doing progress videos, doing, all
Yeah.
sorts of content on there. I mean, it's a full-time job doing some of that content.
Yeah. And as someone who works by themselves, posts by themselves, is
Mm-hmm.
managing all of it by themselves. I am literally the PR, the advertisement, the workforce,
Yeah.
the management, the all and again, sometimes I just don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Um so having the energy to do all of that and then sit down and draw anywhere from 5 to as many as 15 hours in a day as I've
Mm.
done.
Mm-mm.
It's exhausting.
It is. It is exhausting. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kind of wrap us up here with the wonderful line at the end of your sketchbook. All characters copyrighted by their respective owners. All images are for oogling and staring at only.
Yes.
Oogling and staring at.
I actually adopted that from other artists' sketchbooks that I saw at the time because, technically we're not supposed to reprint anything that we've
Mm,
done
mm,
that is licensed. Um, but largely those companies let it slide because it is free advertisement.
yeah.
But it's kind of like at one point Facebook was cracking down on people if they posted a video and there was a copyrighted song in the background.
Oh
You
yes.
had to
Mm,
acknowledge that you did not own the rights to that music
mm,
in order
mm,
for it to not be taken down.
yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. We are acknowledging that we don't own this property, but here's a showcase of our work. You are
Yeah.
welcome to look.
Yeah.
So it's that. Um, but I didn't want it to sound so technical, and I tend to be pretty cheeky, so I was like, yeah, it's only for
No, no,
oogling
no.
and
Well, listen, Ree, I'm thrilled to have had a chance to have a chat to you after all these years. So thank
yeah.
you for getting up early. And long may people oogle and stare at cards that are coming out of your creative pores. Um, you
Not
remember
just my
us?
big hair.
You remember I said at the very top before we started recording how we
Yeah,
end our podcast, and
yeah.
if I hadn't asked you to write that down, would you have remembered it?
No,
No, I told you. I told you.
yeah.
So, Ree, if you wouldn't mind signing us off for this episode of the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast.
Thanks everybody for listening, for tuning in, for collecting. Please remember to always be kind to one another, be patient with artists, and above all, enjoy collecting.
Boom.